Doctor Who Velocity is a fan series, which is it's one of the most ambitious fan projects that I have ever seen, where there are about 7 episodes in, and that does not include audio dramas and audio productions and crossovers and things like that, where this was conceptualized, or like, it was put into production when Peter Capaldi was announced to be departing as the Doctor, and a group of creatives from Idaho thought, what if the next Doctor was a woman? Basically, we had a white-haired Scotsman, but instead of regenerating into a blonde woman from Huddersfield, he regenerated into a brunette from Idaho. And it's been a very successful fan series that's been running for a couple of years. 7 episodes, several audio dramas, and they also have done some episodes during the pandemic where they've been filming with green screens. Basically, the production values are off the charts in terms of fan productions. The performances are great, and also I just think it's just great that we have a fan series that's not afraid to be so bonkers and to wear its heart so firmly on its sleeve as well. These are like really cool pulp sci-fi stories with real heart to them, great production values as well. They also star Krystal Moore as the Velocity Doctor, as I like to call her, and because they've dropped their latest episode, which features The Silence, I thought that I would get in touch with them and we'll have a quick chat, we'll have a quick interview. Folks, I am delighted to be joined by Krystal, aka the Velocity Doctor. I think that could be one way to refer to her. How are you doing today, Krystal?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you, very good. So I understand there's a big time difference. So you're there bright and early in sunny Idaho?
It is, yeah, it is 10 a.m. here, so it's got to be, what, 5 in the
Yeah,
evening?
yeah, 5 hour difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, well, longer than that, isn't it? 7.
8-hour difference.
7. Math is hard first thing in the morning or this late in the evening. Either way. So if you could just be able to introduce yourself and your series, Doctor Who Velocity, I'd love to hear your pitch for it and also how you started it all those years ago.
Yeah, of course. So, like you said, my name is Krystal Moore. I'm a local comedian and actor. I produce shows here in Idaho. And when Matt Smith left Doctor Who, or not Matt Smith, but when Matt Smith left Doctor Who, I had this just idea sort of pop in my head. It was a comedy sketch. How funny it would be, some of these scenes, if the Doctor were just a female, And then Peter Capaldi left, years later, because it's just a funny little idea that just floated away. And when Peter Capaldi left, it popped back in my mind, and I thought, ooh, we can maybe do this right now. And I brought it up to my partner, Phillips, who's an incredibly talented video editor, and he loved it. He loved the idea, and we've just gone down this rabbit hole. We've been on this journey for a couple of years now to make it Doctor Who Velocity.
Like, well, how did you get into the show initially?
So over here in America, we have PBS, which would be like your equivalent to your BBC, the Public Broadcasting Network, and they run a lot of BBC programs. So, in my teen years and young adult years, I came across it on the BBC reruns on the PBS. So I always liked the story. I liked sci-fi in general. I've always enjoyed sci-fi. So that got me interested. And then once you could stream them, I watched them all and fell in love. Yeah.
Do you have
I think like a lot of Americans.
Yeah. Do you have a particular favorite Doctor then? One that you sort of maybe try and channel in Velocity?
I always get asked this question. It's such a tough one because I appreciate each of their characters for different reasons and what they brought to who the Doctor was as an archetype. But I think just vibe-wise, I like Tennant, and maybe that's because that was the first one I really got hooked to. But he's such an incredible actor,
So when you first started doing Doctor Who Velocity, so it was Chris directing and editing, and you writing the scripts as well.
Yeah, I wrote the first one, and I wrote the second two, which was sort of a two-parter. So and then from there, there were a couple that we sort of co-wrote, and then this last one, Chris, it was all Chris, and I just love it. I'm so impressed with him.
So when it comes to Doctor Who Velocity, like, because firstly, cards on the table, I love the series. I think it's really really good. I think it's so. I just love how it's unafraid to be bonkers and also really heartfelt. Where's the heart on its sleeve? Real sense of style as well. I think your Doctor's outfits in particular are amazing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, the hat is just perfect and the tie. The combination's terrific. When you think or talk about Doctor Who Velocity, like when it comes to the next episode that you're planning to do or the future of it, what do you try and endeavour it to be? I know that's a broad question.
That is a very broad question. We're all about the story at the end of the day and the characters, and that's what's neat about Doctor Who in general, is that it's a really malleable archetype and story you can take anywhere and show people all different kinds of characters and people. And we're interested in keeping it fun and keeping it light and going to those places in history and highlighting interesting characters, but also going to places in the future, and it's really all about the characters. So when we come up with a interesting character or person, then we sort of go with that. That's where, this one about Juana Inez, that was and I was just corrected there for a second, and I'll correct myself here with you. The idea originally for the Juana Inez was brought up to us by the actress, Monica. She really liked this character, this person in history, and Chris went and researched this character, and I went and I love poetry. I write poetry myself, so I went down the rabbit hole on that too. And Chris took that character and that story to a friend of his who's a writer he was working with on something else, named Gavin, who really brought that whole story to life in just such an incredible way without when you get into things like Catholic Church histories and nuns, you can get into some interesting places, but that's where she is, and that's what's true for her. And we didn't really touch on any of that, but he understood that history, and Chris brought him all of the research with Juana Inez and Doctor Who and the aliens and how to get it into that structure. So it was a really cool effort to get this really beautiful story in the end. I remember the first time I read it, I was just like, I cried at the end and I was excited to make it.
Yeah, the ending is like a real like emotional like gut punch. I thought it was an incredible job that you all did on the latest episode. So for the first, like, let's say 5 ones up until the Christmas special, like there's so much variety. Like you've got a rave at Stonehenge in the 80s. You've got a Christmas special, of course. You've got Daleks, Davros, and Witch Doctors, and all that in the first 5 episodes, and then the panini, as we've called it on our live stream, the panini hits, and then things have to start changing in terms of how you're making the series. And I'd love to know what the thought process was and what the light bulb moment might have been for we could maybe film it a different way.
Well, that's a really good question. Chris and I are both touch obsessive, and we can't stop, won't stop. The pandemic isn't going to stop us from doing what we want to do. If that's making Doctor Who or doing comedy, I did comedy the whole time during the pandemic. I just went to people's front yards and did it, and it was a lot of fun. But you just have to keep making what you make if that's what you do. So the other thing that lent well to it for us was that so much of how we were making it was already it was already green screen. So much of every episode is filmed here in my living room. We just push the toys to the side and put a green screen up, and so there was a lot of stuff we were already doing. that Tron episode, we were very careful to, because this is really early on and nobody knew quite how careful or scared should we really be or concerned. So we filmed everybody, one off, and this one, everything was a lot more relaxed, especially here in Idaho. So we were able to film with one actor, and I could be there, on the other side of the room, doing lines against him. So, you just have to pivot. Life is always changing. You can't let things stop you from doing what you do.
I'm having dreams, vivid dreams of an infinite universe with unexplained, insatiable bursts of poetry, and the strange but persistent urge to look over my shoulder.
It's the 1600s. Everyone loves a poem, Juana. You don't have Nintendo or roller coasters or Lil Nas? Oh, that last one's poetry.
Considering that things are, I imagine, a bit more relaxed than they were, let's say, like a year ago, in terms of restrictions and things like that. How's the comedy? Are you back on stage in front of audiences?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I've got. Last year was interesting because we really didn't know, so it was just every month we figured out, okay, this is where we're at now, so this is what we're gonna do. And now I've got a couple of monthly shows in a couple of different locations and a few big ones. So I've got a great year planned out. It's, nice. It's been good.
No, great to hear.
People always need to laugh.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. What's your brand of comedy there? What's your style of comedy?
That is a more difficult question than you could imagine.
Varied.
Varied, yes. I'm quite theatrical. I have some jokes that are poems and some jokes that are stories, and it's a lot. I like to see if I can reach all different kinds of people and make them laugh about the same thing. That's sort of where I'm coming from in the end, really.
Yeah, finding the common ground.
Yeah. Let's all come together and have a laugh. Like, life is wild at the best of times. So, have a laugh about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I also got a similar sense of like community in like Doctor Who Velocity, because you are able to like bring in different fan series as well, like you did for the Tron episode, getting Sophie Aldred in for a dial-in a cameo in one episode. Like how are you organizing all this, like all this stuff? This is brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Most of that is entirely Chris. He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. Director and producer and organizer of all of these kinds of things. So he's got all that end of it for sure. He's been real solid on that.
No, great stuff. And Krystal, it's last question. What's the future of Doctor Who Velocity then? I know that you've only just released the latest episode, so maybe it's if from my perspective it could be looking too far ahead, but maybe you've got something in mind.
We certainly do. We're definitely the kind of people that just before we finish a project, we're thinking about the next thing. So the finishing of this one is like, oh, come on, I want to get on to this next thing, So we've got a next thing planned that's I'm really excited about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lighthearted, more lighthearted than the last episode. But there'll be other episodes, I think, like that too. I love history. I absolutely love learning about different people in time and who they were and what they did and what made them tick and how they affected the world around them. So I'll definitely have future stories like that as well.
Brilliant, Krystal. It's been brilliant chatting with you. Best of luck with your upcoming gigs and upcoming Velocity episodes. I really can't wait to see what you all pull out of the bag.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you for watching and this interview and being interested at all. We really appreciate it. It means so much when something that you make is put out there and people see it for what it is and love it. It's just, thank you.
No, it's all good. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you. All right, you have a good one.
No, take care. Thanks so much, Krystal. Thank you. folks, I am joined now by the director and editor of Doctor Who Velocity, Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, doing good, thank you. Doing very good. Congratulations on the latest episode, Silence, which dropped about a week or two ago.
Yeah, that one had been in gestation for a very long time. I think 2 or 3 years ago is when we first came up with the idea for that. As we make the episodes, we sort of roll them out. The production on one starts before the next one comes out, usually. And this one just ended up taking so much longer. Obviously, there was the pandemic. We went a little bit overboard with the visual effects, which was great fun, and I learned a ton. I'm a video editor as a kind of day job, and you watch these like Marvel movies like Shang-Chi or something like that, and they shoot it all on a green screen and they track everything and they put in all these crazy effects, and you think, oh, I wonder how difficult it would be for someone to do that at home. It turns out it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. We had a handheld camera and we had to sort of track the background to it. And if it's slightly off, you feel like seasick watching it. And there's a couple of shots in there that were a little tricky, that there's a little bit of blobbiness going on. But overall, we got it done. But yeah, it took a little while. I think I was tracking shots for a year, basically, which is just outrageously silly. I should have figured out a better way of. I should have used that technique in just a few scenes instead of pretty much all of them have that. So
No.
Yeah, it was a little overwhelming, but we're glad it's done and we're moving on to the next one. So
well, the effort is absolutely commendable. Even from the beginning of the series as well, a few years ago. Just the production value, despite it being it says on your YouTube page a no budget, non-profit fan production.
Yeah.
So it's great to see the talent and the hard work up on screen. Viewers will probably be able to tell by the accent. You're not from Idaho, I take it.
I am not from Idaho. I'm from Braintree in Essex.
Oh, an Essex lad, brilliant.
Yeah.
So what's your Doctor Who story then? How did you get into the show, and how did you end up in Idaho? Those two could be linked, or they could be separate journeys.
Yeah, gotcha. So as a kid, I mostly remember Sylvester McCoy. Watching that when it came out. I was 40 this year, so I was a kind of in my. As I was growing up, I think Sylvester McCoy was the main one that I watched. And obviously the show went on hiatus and then it came back again. And I'd actually got into doing TV production during that time. As a teenager, I'd make films on a camcorder. And then I went to college in Bournemouth and then was working in London. I ended up working for Viacom for about 10 years. They do MTV and Nickelodeon and Comedy Central and stuff, and now Channel 5 and things like that. So I was working in kind of doing entertainment TV, news type of stuff. And while I was doing that, obviously the series came back with Christopher Eccleston, and that was kind of fun. And obviously it got pretty popular after that. The next couple of Doctors, really made that show go, really take off again. And then my ex-wife was American, so I moved to America, and we were together a couple of years, and then that ended, and I met Krystal, and we just both had an appreciation for some Doctor Who, and decided I'd made a few fan films before. I used to make a Power Rangers fan film actually.
Oh, nice.
And that got pretty popular in the early 2000s, just as sort of YouTube was becoming popular. So I sort of knew what I was getting into, and we thought, hey, we'll give this a go. Krystal likes performing, so it seemed like a good hobby project. I'd wanted to get into TV drama for quite a while, and being in Idaho, there's not really a lot of that type of stuff about, and so I was missing London a little bit, and I thought, if I do Doctor Who, I'll sort of learn a few skills in the sort of drama area, writing and directing actors and stuff. I've done a lot of video production before, but not a lot of stuff with actors. So I thought that would be a good thing to do. And then obviously Doctor Who it had that this is going to go into a whole other conversation now, but Doctor Who in its the peak of its popularity which I think is fair to say was with David Tennant and then to Matt Smith, had that. It's the same thing with like Harry Potter, the same thing that made One Direction really popular in America. You know, it's a British dude. He's gonna fly in and whisk you off on a lovely, exciting adventure. You know, it's got that kind of vibe to it, and that just it's funny. Like, I felt some parallels when I came to the US, and you could see how people. I think it might be the British accent or something. It's weird. Like people react to it in this way. Like you've got like magical powers sometimes, and you're just like, what's going on? Yeah. So it was just really funny, like seeing that the Doctor Who fans here, how they'd reacted to the show, and I just thought, an American Doctor Who might be quite fun, or even though I'm not American, and it might stir the pot a little bit, see what people might get a bit excited about it. So because we chose Doctor Who because it allows you to go anywhere. It's really interesting. And as a filmmaker, you could basically come up with any film idea and make it work within Doctor Who. So if I want to do, a particular, if I want to make a show about a 17th century Mexican poet, Juana Inez, I can do that in the medium of Doctor Who. And it allows you to be a bit wacky with the production values, obviously on a zero budget. So that helps as well. Obviously, Doctor Who has a history of rubber monsters and dodgy green screen and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the charm of the show sort of fits making a fan film. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was saying to Krystal, I think there's a huge amount of variety in just the first few episodes of Velocity, where like Witchfinders, Daleks, Davros, the Master. You've got like a Christmas special about Christmas specials. So, and also I think there's like an undercurrent of like technology to the whole thing as well. I when watching it, I can tell that whoever's behind this loves technology and stuff like Black Mirror. And then there's a Tron crossover.
We do actually have our next episode is going to be a crossover. Okay. Actually, I can reveal now for the first time. We wanted to do an in-camera episode.
Okay.
Like not too many, visual effects. We wanted to be practical. And I don't know if you've heard of these guys, but these guys are from the 1980s, and they're called the Boglins.
Okay. Yes, I am aware of Boglins. Okay. That sounds like the most extraordinarily 80s thing.
Yes.
That isn't... that's incredible. Okay.
Yeah, as a kid, I used to love Boglins. I had a Boglin, and they've just re-released them. You can buy them now. They're like $30-$40 online. And so we have a whole family of Boglins. We have a 5-year-old as well. So I bought him one because I used to have one.
So they're secretly for you.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
And you'd never get away. I'd never get away with buying this many of them, obviously, because it's a bit weird. But if you're making a film with them, then you think, oh, what the heck, So yeah, we've got Boglins in our next episode. So that's what's coming next, and that will be out in a couple of months. Hopefully we're gonna be quicker with this one. One of the things with Doctor Who Velocity is I'm experimenting a lot. With this one we did a lot of visual effects experimenting, which takes time. But I do make video productions for a living where people give me actual deadlines, otherwise I wouldn't be able to afford to eat if I couldn't stick to one. So there's only been a couple of episodes where we've done that, but this episode we're really going to stick to a deadline, which will help, get it out on time for the people that want to watch, and keeping the momentum going. One of the I'm sure you've experienced this. Everyone's running their own YouTube channel these days. If you don't, keep on it, people will obviously lose interest, and there's plenty of content out there to watch. So trying to keep your fan base happy is obviously a little bit to it. I don't take that too seriously. I'm not, some YouTubers drive themselves crazy trying to make videos. I don't worry if things slip a little bit, but, I'd like to get another episode out this year for sure. So that's what we're doing next.
Brilliant. So let's go to you've done you've got 5 episodes under your belt at the end of 2019. The latest being the Christmas special, and like this doesn't include the audio ones as well, the extra and crossovers that you're doing. And then the world changes, shall we say? The panini happens, which is what we call it on our stream, the panini. What was the light bulb moment where you realised you'd be able to make Doctor Who Velocity in a different way?
Things are very different over here than maybe what they were in England. The thing about Idaho is that it's very low population density. When I lived in Essex, there's 2,000 people a square mile. In Idaho, there's 20.
Okay.
So the safest place to go when the pandemic happened was outside, was get out your house. Get out of your house. Don't sit in the house with 5 people. Krystal's a comedian for her job, and she, a lot of the clubs shut, but she still went out to people's backyards and stuff and had some social distancing and did the shows. So that was the atmosphere here. So we wanted to carry on. So I thought, well, if we're doing green screen, we can film one actor at a time and just put them together. And in fact, even if there wasn't a pandemic, I would have still filmed one actor at a time. You might just have more actors in a room together at the same time, playing off each other. But we did that on webcam. So we put the other actors on webcam, and the one person we were filming that day, it was just me and them.
You ready, Krystal?
Yep.
Action.
Hello? Jeremy? Are you in here?
Thought I'd never wake up.
Yeah, luckily I work at a production company that we didn't really shut down. There's only 5 of us in the office, and we all have separate rooms. So we were able to carry on working in the office as usual. So I was still able to use some of their equipment. That's where our studio is that we use. So we can use that in the evenings for a little bit of fun. So dealing with your own mortality, worrying about what happens if I get COVID or whatever, actually made us want to get work done, because it's like, well, you don't know what's coming next. Who knows what disease or ailment may afflict you. Let's get on and make some shows and take precautions, but let's not stop working. We are, we're all vaccinated. We've all had our vaccines and stuff like that. So we are a little bit more comfortable now, filming 2 or 3 people at a time, especially if we're not adding to the exposure that they're getting, that we feel comfortable. Like, for instance, our next episode has a couple of friends in it who see each other every week anyway.
Yeah.
Like, they'll be around each other's houses, whether I'm there filming or not. The other thing is, though, with the puppet characters, the other great thing is that I can kind of film them on, I don't need anyone else. A camera and, hello, blah, 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 like that. So that helps as well, cut down on, because we're introducing the puppets as characters, that's less people that we're filming for real. So that will help as well. So
and it's very forward thinking as well. You don't need actors, you just need boglins. There we go. That's the best. That's the future. It was the 80s and now it's the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So just rounding up the conversation then. So, because of course you and Krystal are big Doctor Who fans. I've got obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be over 7 episodes deep into a year-end fan series. But when you're working on a Doctor Who Velocity episode, what is it that you try to imbue into the stories to give it its own sense of identity? Because I was telling Krystal that I think it's a fan series that's not afraid to wear its heart on its sleeve. It's not afraid to be really bonkers and out there as well. Great sense of community. You've had DW 2012 on board, Sophie Aldred as well, which must have been great for you being a Sylvester McCoy era kid growing up. But where do you view it?
I wouldn't want to make a show that was just a watered down version of the real show, and obviously if you're doing a 0 budget fan production, your show is never going to reach some of the standards of the actual show. It's not, production wise, it's not possible. And so rather than sort of dealing with those weaknesses all the time, you got to play to your strengths. Well, I don't have a BBC boss telling me you can't make an episode about boglins. That's crazy. So it's really nice to be able to be like, no, we're going to come out with some real strong episodes that perhaps the show wouldn't be able to do, or we'll do a different spin on it, or you're not going to get a Doctor Who Tron crossover, are you? It's kind of so it's fun from that respect. Also being able to like redesign stuff. You know, we obviously did our own different versions of the Daleks. You know, you can imagine, you know, on the actual show, if they change the style of the screws on the Daleks, people flip it. You know, they'll be like, "What? This is an outrage! You can't do that." And with us, it's nice to be able to just make some changes. You know, obviously our Davros looked a little bit different, and the reason for that was because I didn't want him in like a fake Davros mask with like a hole in the mouth where the mouth is. You know, like that would look, for us, that would look too cheesy. And then obviously doing the actual Davros prosthetic makeup would be really difficult. So we sort of did our own spin on it and played to our strengths, you know. So kind of like with our TARDIS, you know, it's white inside. And it's white inside because really we didn't have the resources to make a huge TARDIS set. And where would we put it, you know? And it was like, well, if we do a white background, we can just use a photo background and then, you know, in the studio, and then for the wide shots we'll do some CG and that will work. So it's, you have to try take the weaknesses and kind of flip them is our approach. And so we take the scripting pretty seriously too. We try and make sure the scripts are up to scratch. Obviously they're a lot shorter, so we have the ability to skip around a lot quicker, which leaves the audience wanting more sometimes. You know, sometimes people complain, "Oh, I wish that episode was twice as long," and I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to make it. Like, I have to make it, and I don't want to like outstay our welcome. You know, it's like, it's a fan show. Like, let's enjoy it for 10 minutes and get on to the next one. So
play fast and loose, and don't be afraid to just have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Chris, obviously there'll be links in the description to watch Doctor Who Velocity and everything, but where can everybody find yours and Krystal's work online?
Krystal is, you know, she's on Twitter and stuff. If you go to the Doctor Who socials, you'll find her like Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. So she does a lot of stand-up comedy. So if you're in Idaho, you can come and see one of her shows. And then for me, I do a lot of random stuff and don't have my own account. You can check out chrisphillips.tv. That's where my like show reel is. You can see what other stuff I work on. I worked for MTV for about 15 years, so I made a lot of Pimp My Ride type of stuff and
nice,
all that kind of thing. So I'm a bit old school though. I keep myself fairly anonymous online. And then you know, my work just comes out via whoever I'm working for. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Brilliant. And there'll be links in the description as well for everything Doctor Who Velocity related, from Twitter to the YouTube and everything else in between. Chris, thank you so much. Oh, sorry, my cat Winnie has decided to invade the desk. And there we go. Move that all back. Brilliant. So, Chris, thank you to yourself and Krystal for joining me today. Massively appreciate your time. Congratulations on like all of the episodes, and especially the latest one, getting it all off the ground and over the finish line.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It's great to chat to you.